Hey, this is John Siskovich with Farm Marketing Solutions, and I wanted to show you in Lightroom exactly how I edit my farm photos. And I took a few photos of my chickens this morning, and they definitely need a little bit of work. So we're going over to Lightroom. You can see I've already imported the photos. All I do is take the memory card out of my camera, put it into my computer, and it automatically sorts it by date. You can see over here, this is my external hard drive. It goes into a pictures folder. It's broken down by year. You can see in 2011, I took 8,000 pictures. 2012, 6,700 pictures. I take a lot of photos. But my latest is in 2013. I'll go over here. These are my chickens out on pasture. And I use these photos to highlight, what I'm doing on the farm and show my CSA members exactly, how the chickens live and, just what's going on. So developing. On the very top here, there's library, which is where everything is, and those are where all your folders will be. You go to develop, and that's what we're going to do with this video. Now this photo, my chickens are a couple weeks old. They're getting to be a good size. I really like this picture because it shows that they have, a fair amount of space to live in. You can see in the background where they used to be. So, the manure is not building up. They use this bucket as their drinker. They have a feed trough here that I'm actually going to modify. But in general, the picture needs some work. So what we're going to start with is cropping. And I click on this crop overlay, and it gives me my rule of thirds. And as I go to the side of it, you can see that the arrow changes. And as the arrow changes to that little, whatever you would call it, I can change the orientation of the picture. And I found that in general, you want to have either horizontally or vertically one 90-degree line in the photo, if that's what you're going for. This is particularly with pictures that have a horizon. You want to have the horizon flat. It kind of orients your eye and gets you into the photograph. So I'm going to use my back level here as my my horizon, my making everything flat. And in the front here, I'm going to bring it up just a little bit to get rid of some of the grass. The main focus of the picture is the chickens, not the grass. And I'll bring in the side just a little bit and kind of center the image. I'll go this way. I'm going to have this bar be right in the middle. And when I'm done, I just click done. So here we have our image cropped up a little bit. I like that a little bit better. The automatic setting on cameras always take things a little bit cool and a little bit overexposed. And with cool, it makes everything look a little blue. With overexposure, you lose some of the detail and some of the contrast. So our first slider, there's specific controls here that you can do spot correct or red eye removal, really simple stuff to use. Or you just go through the series of sliders on the right here, and I'll show you exactly which ones I use all the time. Tint, I never really touch. Temperature. How I told you that cameras take everything a little bit blue? Well, I warm it up. This kind of corrects your white balance. If you can see, the tarp and the chickens are kind of blue right now. Just a little bit. I always warm it up just a hair. Makes it look more like a nice summer day, and people respond a lot better to warmer photographs. The next thing I do, just to give me a baseline, this is your tone curve, and that's where all the tones are sitting in the photograph and how it's balanced. And you can get into the histogram up above, and you can see the blue, red, yellow, green, everything. But in general, you want more of an S curve. So I bring down the darks and bring up the lights just a little bit. And that's just a click and a drag and a click and a drag. And you can see the photograph change. I'll change it back again. Maybe I'll Control Z. So we got a straight line here. It's kind of like whitewashed a little bit. You can see I'm bringing the darks down, and that makes the blacks and the darker parts of the image get a little bit more pronounced. And I brought the lights up a little bit. That gives me a little bit more contrast. The chickens are popping out of the pasture a little bit more. And from here, I can edit. Now, some of the detail, especially with these chickens, is a little lost because it's, it's so white. So I'm going to take this recovery slider, and you'll see those chickens go from a white mass to a little more delineated. And that's nice if you overexpose on your camera just a little bit. You can bring back some of that detail, and Lightroom does that kind of seamlessly. I'm noticing as I'm working, I want want to tilt it a little bit. It's kind of an odd picture because of all the different angles going on here, but you know, as you go through, you do a little correction here, a little correction there. The other thing I want to do, because I have all the space up on top and around the corners that is pulling my attention, there's post-crop vignetting. And if you go to the right, it's white. If you go to the left, it's black. Now, this is very extreme. I never do it that much. What I like to do with vignettes is just add in a little bit, and that darkens up this light area and pulls some of the focus to that center. There's still not quite enough. I'm not happy enough with that center. We're going to try a little fill light. That brings up just the middle tones and the fill. And what I did there with the vignetting coming down just a little bit on the side where the sides are darker and putting in a little bit of fill light, that brings up the, you know, the exposure of this middle area here while keeping the sides dark, and that'll pull my focus to the chickens on the grass just a little bit more. And you know, you could play around with this in any photograph, whatever you want. If you wanted to make it black and white, you can just take the saturation here and go black and white with your photo. And if you don't like, you know, if it looks kind of washy, you up the contrast a little bit, and there's your chickens popping right out on pasture. It kind of looks like a nice black and white old-timey photo. If you double-click on any of these words, it'll bring it right back to the middle. And that was a nice trick that I learned, because I'd sit there and I'd try to get the slider, you know, exactly, and it's hard, especially if your hands aren't as steady. My hands aren't very steady. And you'd see it's hard for me to land on 0. You just double-click on the word saturation, and that fixes it up. So that's what I do to most of my photos. I do a crop overlay. I warm them up a little bit. I take this straight line and I make it a little bit more of an S-curve, which gives me a little contrast. I'll throw in a little vignette if it's appropriate to pull my focus to the center. And then I'll mess around with either recovery or fill light. Maybe some of this stuff, I mean, you could sit there and mess around with whatever you want until you get the photograph looking like you want it. But you can see that's easy peasy. It went from something that looked a little bit more like this. You know, you could see the colors there and the difference to this. And that warmer, nicer picture does really good for your marketing. You know, it's just, you want to put your best foot forward at all times. So, you know, with that little bit of editing, you can do that. And I've gotten to the point where I can just fly through it because I do the same things every time in general. I just fly through things depending on the photographs and what I'm doing and where they're going. But for the farm photos and for my farm blog, that little touch-up makes a huge difference, and people really see, you know, professionalism in my blog. One of the other things I like to do is if you have, you know, just a photo here that I haven't edited yet, these are my chicken tractors out on pasture, you right-click it with your mouse and go to Develop Settings, and that gives you a whole list of things that you can do. They're kind of like presets, or they are presets, with creative looks and effects that you can add onto the photo. If you find something that you like, we'll just pick one at random. Color Creative Yesteryear, number 1. So it makes it a little bit brighter, a little bit yellow. I'm not in love with it. It kind of looks green. There's so much green in that photo. One of the ones that I use all the time is Aged Photo, Color Creative Aged Photo. And if it's overblown, you just bring the exposure down a little bit. And that kind of gives you a sepia tone, you know, pulls down the saturation, ups the contrast, makes it kind of an old-timey photo. It's not really that great with this photo. So I'll just go back. And the great thing about Lightroom is all these edits that I'm making. So if I have this photograph and at some point I didn't like this edit or I wanted to do something different, I haven't corrupted the original file. All these edits are saved kind of on top of the original picture. So if I ever wanted to revert to the old picture, I would just right-click it, go to Develop Settings, and Reset. Up at the top, Reset. So that was right-click, Develop Settings, and then Reset right up at the top. I don't think you can actually see it on this screen capture, but Develop Settings, it's right there at the top. Just trust me, I guess. Here, let's see if I can move it down. Right-click, Develop Settings, Reset. So easy peasy. The time that it saves it is when you go to File, or actually you don't go to File. So once you have your picture, and I'll have a whole other video on exporting. is you have your picture, you go back to library, and you click on export, and that's when you export another copy of the photo. So you'll always have the original, the edits are saved in Lightroom, and then you export an edited copy of the photo. So it gives you two photographs, which is great because it's like keeping your negative. You always want to keep the negatives because you can make more and more copies from that negative. So I hope this was very helpful. I don't know what I would do without Lightroom to organize all my photographs. You can see in my library that I take thousands and thousands of photographs. It's just ridiculous. There's pictures, 20,000. I have 20,000 photos. But because I have Lightroom, I have them all organized into folders by date. I also have them organized by category as well. And when I need to find a chicken, like if I'm doing a newsletter, I have all these chickens. It doesn't matter if they're the recent bunch of chickens or if it's an old bunch of chickens. I have them all sorted into a folder. I can just click on the chickens folder and find a picture of a chicken really easy. It's not clicking around a lot of folders. So the power of Lightroom is just amazing, the things that you can do with it. It balances that power with how usable it is, that I can just click on a picture, go to develop, slide a few visual sliders, and I'm not pressing looking for any weird buttons or doing any code, and just export a photo, and I'm all made in the shade. So until next time, if you go to farmmarketingsolutions.com/farm-photos, I have a bunch of before and after pictures of actual farm photos that people sent in to me that I took into Lightroom and edited. And, you can see those edits. I tell you exactly what I did. I blew through them really, really quick, but it makes a huge difference. And, it's a visual thing. You'll have to see for yourself. So farmmarketingsolutions.com/farm-photos. Thank you so much.